It starts subtly, a ghost in the machine, a whisper of movement you didn't command. Then it grows, a persistent, infuriating drift that pulls you off target, sends you spiraling, and costs you the game. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Stick drift. Yeah, that's right, stick drift, the bane of every gamer's existence. And if you've been suffering from stick drift on your favorite controller, then you've come to the right place. Because today, we're not just complaining about it, we're destroying it. For those of you new to the channel, I'm Anton, a power engineer, industrial mechanic, and a Red Seal electrician. We cover all kinds of products and topics in an approachable way for the average everyday person. I'm glad you found us. Hello and welcome back to Gears and Tech. Yes, we've all been there before. Dealing with stick drift at first is just a small little problem, but it never fixes itself. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And before you know it, you're looking to shell out another large chunk of change for your new favorite controller. But what if there was a way to resurrect your old stick drift controller? I mean, after all, it's not a bad controller, it just has a little stick drift. It's the reason you've been hanging on to it this long anyway. Today we're going to look at tearing this controller apart and replacing the broken standard analog sticks with Hall effect stick. But what is stick drift anyway? Well, to understand how stick drift happens, we need to understand how the little potentiometers in these controllers actually work. And to help illustrate it, I'm going to use this little piece of paper here and this pencil. And on this paper, we're going to draw a little box. Now, when you move your controller forward or backwards, there's a tiny little wiper, as we're going to call it, that slides across this pad here. And then it slides this way, and then it slides this way, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. Eventually, the tiny metal contacts creates a bunch of carbon dust that wears down, and the contact isn't quite as good. But also, it can get a little bit loose to where it just touches over here instead of dead center. And that's where you start to develop that little niggly drift, the first signs of drift, when your character is suddenly walking off a ledge all by itself, or you're trying to line up that perfect sniper shot and it just drifts up and off to the side a little bit. Now, some people have used tricks to clean out that carbon dust and got a little bit more life out of their controller, but it does not avoid the inevitable, which is sooner or later, you will have to either throw the controller in the garbage or fix it. This wear just goes on and on and on, and it is inevitable that eventually that controller is going to break. This is, after all, an inherent design flaw with how the standard controller works. But wait, it's not my fault. But how do we fix it permanently? This is where our hero enters the room. Now, my package showed up just like this in a nondescript white bag, and inside here are our K-Silver Hall effect potentiometers. Yes, these little babies have no touching parts. So in the original design, where it's wiping back and forth on there, just wearing away at it, these ones use the magic of magnets to sense the movement and direction instead of using those carbon wipers that are prone to failure. These little babies are something like out of a sci-fi movie, except they're real. They actually work with zero wear and tear. So in theory, these little babies will make this controller last forever. It's kind of like comparing an old record player to Spotify. And I know I'm so dating myself. Some of you guys maybe have never even seen a record player, but we'll cue some B-roll of a record. Now you can see the little needle spinning on that record. That's always wearing away at the original vinyl, and eventually you can wear out your vinyl record. Whereas Spotify, it's digital, it plays the music you want whenever you want without any loss in quality. And that's what this guy does. It's kind of like the Spotify for your PlayStation 5, except that you can actually install Spotify on your PlayStation 5. So maybe a bad analogy. But what does this mean for you, the gamer? Well, it means hitting that perfect headshot. It means dropping the ball into the net with accuracy and precision. It means high precision drifts around corners and tight walls and barriers and turning you into a gaming machine. This unparalleled precision can be had if you have a little bit of bravery and maybe a little bit of dumb confidence to tear into your PlayStation 5 controller and do a pretty major surgery. Now, congratulations on the purchase of your K-Silver Hall Effect sticks, and now it is time to install it in your DualSense controller. The first thing we've got to do is tear the controller apart. We're going to use some tools to do this, which are readily available if you do not have them already. First thing we got to do is take this trim piece off here, which I find getting just underneath this corner there, that seam is the easiest. And then this just is clipped on, so there's no screws or anything. You just lift it up and then slide that out just like that. We'll put all of our spare parts over here. Now we want to pull the front triggers off, which I just like getting underneath here, just like this, and then you can pop it. You're going to hold your finger there so it doesn't fly away. It just pops right out just like that. And then we can put those in our spare parts bin. So all I'm doing is getting underneath here and then lifting up. It's, again, just pressure fit under there. And that is all we need to do there. Now there's 4 screws. There's one screw here, one screw here. There's a screw on the bottom here and a screw on the bottom right here. So we're going to just pop those out using our screwdriver. And then if you've got a handy little parts tray like this, you can throw those in there. And then we got these screws right here as well, which are not easy to see, especially for you guys to see and for me to see. And that is it. This case will now separate, and usually I like to get my fingers right here and just kind of pull there. And while I'm applying pressure, there's a clip right here that you're going to need to release, and a clip right there. With both of those clips released, we can keep on pulling this apart. You'll get a little pop there, and then this will completely release. So you're going to kind of lift up and then slide up to get it over top of your triggers. And that'll give us our first look at the inside of the controller. We're not quite there yet. Next, we need to remove the battery, which is just sitting in here. And then I like to get a couple of fingers on here right at the battery connector and just pull straight out, just like that. That's our battery. That's our battery connector. Now there is one more screw right there holding the battery basket in place. So we're going to just pop that guy off of there. We can put that there. And the basket's going to come off with the little microphone. So I popped the microphone there out of the little connector right there where that microphone was connected. Make sure you don't lose that because we'll need that for later. Now we need to remove this whole middle section. So we're going to do that by unclipping this front microphone as well, which if your fingernails are good enough, you can get in there and pull those off just like that. And then the side and controller ribbons as well. We're going to disconnect just like that. And then there's one little ribbon up on top here that also needs to come out just like that. And I just kind of wiggle and pull. Now, I should be able to push on the thumbsticks to pop this main board out, just like that. And that's going to get the main board mostly out how we need to. Now, there are connectors for the motors here. You can leave those attached if you're careful, or you can detach them. Now, I'm going to detach them only because I want to get it clipped onto my holder thing here. If you don't have a holder, you could leave them like this. It's just the whole shell is now in your way and it gets a little bit cumbersome. So I'm able to just heat this up, get a good grip on this, and then we can just pull it off. Black is on the top, red is on the bottom. And all I'm doing is just applying some pressure to the wire so that as the solder heats up enough and it releases, it just pops right off. So we'll do the same on the other side, exactly the same way. I'm not right-handed, so I'm going to try and make this look really easy. There we go, there's the red one off, and we'll get the black one off. There we go. Now we've got the whole thing disconnected from the controller, so it makes it easier. I can move the controller out of the way. Now you're going to need to pop these caps off anyway, so you might as well give those a pull and just yank those off. And that gives us our first look at our test subjects. Now you can see there's a bunch of hair in there. You can see the mechanical nature of the analog sticks that we're going to be pulling out. and replacing with our K silver. Now the main trick here is there's a number of solder points on here, and if we look at the analog stick that we're replacing in here, you can see kind of how many points we need to remove. So we're going to remove 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 points per analog stick. So I'm going to use this guy because it helps give me a third hand. And it also has a magnifying glass so I can see what I'm doing here. You don't need one of these. Now I'm going to put the magnifying glass away so that you guys can see just as much as I can see of what's going on here. Now, I'm going to show you 2 ways to desolder this. I'm going to do my personal favorite way, which is using a solder sucker and a soldering iron. I have my soldering iron set to 480 degrees, mostly because I just like it hot. I go as hot as I can. You can go less temperature if you want, but this one only goes up to 480, and so that's as warm as I go. Now we're going to try my favorite way first, which is using some flux paste, and all we're going to do is just put some on here, and you guys can see just a little bit going in each of the spots that we need to solder, or desolder as the case may be. And this just helps the solder flow. There are other ways to make it flow, but this is the way that I like. Just like that. And then I'm using a soldering sucker. Now you want a good one that moves a lot of air. So I do have a smaller, cheaper one. I don't like it, doesn't work as good. But all we're gonna do is heat this stuff up until it starts to flow, and then suck it up. And it just whisks all that old solder away. Short work of this. These guys. And you can see when it's been sucked out of there. It's not hard to see. It creates that nice tiny little hole. Let's try and get these guys out as well. There we go. And we got these big anchor ones here that have lots of solder in them. They're a little bit harder to get out because they're really in there good. Just going to yank all that solder out of there. Now, if the board is getting too hot, you can damage it, which you don't want to do. So you want to be careful that it's not getting too hot and that you're not causing any heat to transfer through. Can't get it all, then this is where some soldering wick comes in very handy because it'll suck all the extra solder out. So we're going to use some of that now. Just see if we can get some of this solder out of here. This braid is really good at sucking out any extra solder that might be in your way, just to make sure that's all clear. And then what I like to do is just grab this guy and start pulling on it just to make sure that everything's loose and moving as it should. That one's not quite out yet. This is where this magnifying glass does come in handy because you can have a look at everything a lot better. Now that one doesn't want to release, so one of the tricks you can do is add a little bit of new solder to it, and that helps it flow and then suck it right back out of there. So go like that, boom. So now after a lot of heating and cursing and swearing and prying and poking and heating and sucking, we have separated the analog stick from the board. A couple things to be mindful of. do not overheat the board. If you do, you could get the traces to lift up and you'll never get this thing to work again. Something else that you may want to look at doing is popping off the wipers on the old analog sticks. They're no good anyway, so all you got to do is just get a little pick tool or a flat blade or something in between the plastic and the board here, and you can see this will just pry away just like that. And if you pry that away, then all we have to do is remove the 3 solder points on here, and then this will come off on its own. So you can grab this with your fingers, heat them up, and then pull that out. Same with the other one. So we can go here and pry that guy away, and it'll do the same thing, just like this. That gets 6 of your total connections out. Then you can focus on the L3 and R3 button. It's these 4 right here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then these 4 here, the big guys, that's these legs right here. And these legs are for stability. So they're actually here to help keep the thumbstick centered and in position, firmly planted on the board. They don't serve any electrical purpose at all, but they have really big solder points to make them grip extra hard to the motherboard. So that is the hardest ones to get off. But what you may find is after you get those wipers off, you can get a small flat blade underneath here to kind of gently pry and lift to help as you're heating to get it to move. You want to be very careful that there's circuit boards under here that don't get damaged and that you don't get so much heat that your traces lift. But if you do all that well, then you should end up with a perfectly clean circuit board that you can install the new one onto. Now the new ones just drop right in to the old position. If it doesn't drop into those holes, then you've either purchased the wrong one or you haven't got all the solder away. So this one is not dropping all the way in, but I can see which holes need to be cleaned out a little bit more. And you can hold it up to the light and see which ones are clear and which ones are not. But you can also, rather than cleaning it up, you can just put a little heat on it, on the ones that aren't going in, to push it in a little bit further. Let me see if I can get this lined up here. Now, if you do everything well, you should have it all cleaned up, and you should be able to get it all sitting nice and flush on here, just how the other one used to be as well. So we can go ahead and solder this one back on before we continue to the other one. Now I'm going to not use my stand here so that you guys can see a little bit better. So this is the one that we replaced, and all we're going to do is use our solder, and we're really just going to touch every single connection here. Actually, you know, for fun, I'm going to put a little flux on it all just to make sure that everything flows really nicely here. So we're just going to put some flux on all of our connections so that everything flows really well. And then all I'm doing is just heating this up so that the solder flows, and then there, get a nice good connection. Same with that guy there. And that is it. It is all soldered back on exactly how you want it, nice and firm. Now we'll let that dry, and then it's time to do the exact same thing to the other one. Do that off camera real quick, and then I'll show you the completed board. It's really important to make sure that you do a proper job cleaning and dressing your holes before you try to stick the new one in. So my first one, I had a little bit of problems because I tried heating it to get it in, and then it got stuck. So I spent a lot more time heating up this second one, and especially using that solder sucker. Anytime that the solder was stuck, like I'd hold it up to my light. I've got it on my studio lights here. And if I didn't see good, clear, clean light coming through, then I spent a little more time cleaning it off. Also, make sure the pins on your new analog stick are all straight and lined up well. And then you can just reattach this. It should slide right in, just like this. This one needs a little bit of wiggling to get it in, but I can wiggle it and get it flat before I have started doing any soldering at all. So now that I know that it's flat, I'm going to just tap it with my soldering iron real quick, and then we'll begin the reassembly process. Now we can start the reassembly process. We need to find our speaker that jumped out while we were doing our thing there. We'll stick our analog sticks on before we forget about them. Just like this. Like that. And we can start sliding everything back in where it came from. Now, we don't want to forget about the ribbon cables. Remember, we took our wires off for our rumble, so we need to reattach those guys before we get too far along here. And we had black on top and we had red on the bottom. So here's our black one. There's our red one on that side. And I'm going to turn it around because I can't solder upside down very well. There's our red. And there is our black. We can turn that off. That is all put back together, so you can get a good view of what it looks like when all of the pieces are back together. Now it's as simple as putting our battery tray back on. Now I like to remove this microphone and install it first, because otherwise, if you got really small fingers, you could install it after, but it's very hard to get that piece in first. So I like to get it in like that. So it's just dangling there. And then we can stick this guy in like this by lifting that up. Make sure our wires are out of the way. Come on, little guy. Just like that. There, so that microphone's been fed back through there. We can take our first screw. We need to put the screw back in the battery basket. And believe it or not, that holds the whole inside of the controller together. It's just that one screw. To put it in the right hole. Like that. Make sure everything feels good still, and it does. So now we can plug the controller back in. Our battery is back in. Now we can put our shell back on. The shell is going to go on the reverse of the way it went on, the reverse of the way it came off. So we're going to slide the top in first, like that, and then we can pinch the bottom together, like that. Clip, clip, clip. And then it's just a couple screws and we're home free. With all the screws back in, we can pop our front R1 and put our R1 and L1 buttons back in, and those just slide back into position here, and then push and they'll clip into place. And then we slide this guy back in, just like that, and like that, and then it clips back into place as well. And that is everything to reassembling the controller, and your install is complete. And that's all there is to it. Now, when you're done, your controller is going to look exactly the same way as it did before. If you're not sure if everything is good, you can always load up your favorite gamepad testing software and just check how the zero effect works on it. If you do have problems with the zeroing where it might be off a little bit, that's okay. I've actually shown how to use a tool to upgrade the 0 point on the controller without having to do any modifications. I'll put a link to the tool that I've used in the description down below, but this video alone is long enough that I don't want to bore you guys with all those details. That's a whole nother video, but they should come pretty much pre-centered right out of the gate, and you're ready to enjoy your brand new controller. Now, some questions that you guys might have is, how hard is this? Well, as you can see from the install that we just did, it's not super easy, but it's not impossible. Now, you don't need all of the tools that we used in this video. I've shown you a couple different ways that you can desolder and resolder these on to your controller, but it does require you to rip apart a controller, use heated elements, and some precision tools. It's not for the faint of heart. I am pretty experienced in desoldering and resoldering stuff, so I'm comfortable and confident in my skills and abilities. If this is the first time that you've tried desoldering something, it can be a little bit daunting. It's not impossible, but it is a little bit higher on the difficulty spectrum. If you're not totally sure, then at least now you understand what it takes to do it, and maybe look on Marketplace for somebody local who is performing this service for a fee. There are lots of guys that are willing to do it for, reasonably priced. In fact, most guys that I've seen are pretty inexpensive, to the point that I don't even like tearing these controllers apart myself because someone else enjoys it way more than I do. Please do not send me messages asking if I will do this modification to your controller, because I won't. I mean, actually, okay, hold on. That's not totally true. I will, for the small fee of $500 US. I would be willing to tear apart your controller and install these for $500 US. Now, most of you are saying, holy crap, that's a ripoff. You're a ripoff artist. Yes, because I don't want to do that job. There's somebody local to you who wants to do it way more than I do. But on a difficulty scale, I would say that this is a good 6 out of 10 as far as how hard it is. Now that you've seen how easy it is to do on your favorite PlayStation 5 controller, you're probably wondering to yourself, what about some of my other controllers? Well, lucky for you, K-Silver has a lot of different replacement sticks for most of the controllers out there, and we're actually working on getting some of those as well to do videos and reviews and installations. If you're just curious, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because you can check those videos out as they come out and just satisfy that curiosity, or learn how to do it yourself and decide if maybe you want to become the next Hall Effect stick installer in your local area. Also, all of the tools that we used for the install, I will put links in the description to the ones that I've used. Again, you don't need them all, but I have pointed out through the install, this is what you're going to use for this kind of install, and this is what you're going to use for this kind of install. One might be easier or harder for you depending on what you prefer, but all of those are down below. Can't wait to see you guys on the next one. Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end of this video. We hope you enjoy the content in this video, and we'd love to have you come back. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And for those subscribers who are looking for that extra special thing that you can do to support this channel, consider joining our members group. That's where we're building this community, the Gears and Tech community, where we can all enjoy content together. You'll get special perks, which we'd love for you to check out by clicking the link down below. For those of you who are just happy to watch the video, that's okay too.